thing and action.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, welcome to day two of the symposium, day 3 of the MINA event this year. I'm Charles Walker, one of 2 co-directors of CoLab, who are hosting the event. You met the nicer co-director yesterday, probably Francis, who opened the session. I was very interested in particularly in the session that's coming up later today on place. My background's in architecture, and I've kind of had a long-standing interest in the history of place, if you like, and the history of connectivity. So it's kind of prehistory of mobility, I suppose. And one of my kind of New Zealanders will probably have seen this quote many, many times. It's from a poem by Rudyard Kipling, written at the end of the 19th century. You know, it's become co-opted by kind of advertising and marketing people, the last loneliest, loveliest, to kind of explain New Zealand's kind of pure 100% natural beauty and all that kind of stuff. I'm quite interested in the last 2 words, exquisite apart. So much so that I've actually written 1 book and about 6 or 7 articles, all with the same title, which makes your kind of publication record slightly confusing. They've always got a different strapline. But I'm interested in this notion of apartness and the kind of romanticism that it evokes. And so I was kind of interested, I tried to connect to my interest in the poetics of place. I mean, I think it's interesting that MINA is MINA, M-I-N-A, not M-I-N-N-Z, which I think is as much a poetic decision as a political one, I suspect. I read it as a kind of a poetic decision. So I'm kind of interested in this idea of the poetics of place, particularly given New Zealand's kind of historical apartness. We came very late to the British imperial project, and so we inherited solutions to lots of the problems that had been kind of created. Not that we solved all the problems, but I think that's kind of interesting. And looking at the diagram that was in the journal,
it's okay.
Nothing's going to happen now.
Welcome to the MINA family.
Yeah. I was interested in seeing the kind of expanding kind of international networks and connectivities of MINA. So we might have to kind of change the A into kind of G for global or something in the near future. I'm not really here to talk. I'm just here to welcome you. But I'm kind of interested, because we're in a university, I'm kind of interested in the discourse around connectivity and engagement that's happening in all of the universities in New Zealand, probably in Australia now. We are encouraged to become engaged with industry, engaged with communities, and so on, which is all good. But I guess I'm also interested in the other place of the university, which is to be disconnected. You know, we have a great opportunity within kind of the university, within institutions, to guard this place, to be connected and yet exquisitely apart from the kind of day-to-day kind of life. This came out of a conversation I had with a guy called Mark Wigley, who's a New Zealander who has, until recently, been the Dean of Architecture at Columbia. And he's also very keen on this idea that the university kind of defends this space, and not to become too engaged with what he calls the pragmatic realities of existing conditions, and keep open the possibility of an unknown future. I think this is interesting because I'm in a program where we teach creative technologies, and a lot of the discourse around creativity and particularly technology is that the future is already here. The future is already known. It has already arrived. We're just rolling it out. You know, we've got apps for everything, and so all the kind of problems have been done. And it's like I'm deeply suspicious of that. Like, we've learned nothing from the 20th century. So I'm kind of interested in maintaining this kind of space of doubt. I'm a very doubting person generally, and so I'm interested in following some of these discussions, particularly ones around place, and seeing where where the doubts and where the fissures in the arguments are. Anyway, that's enough from me. Once again, welcome to AUT, welcome to CoLab, welcome to MINA, Day 2, 2014. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. So this morning we thought that we will give you also a 4 years overview of MINA, and I think we've been doing some very interesting
co-founder. I'm the other one. And we stand actually to have Gerda actually and Max to start with, and to give us some overview of the screening, because we had the fourth international screening yesterday. Last night was the last session, and it was a fantastic curated session. It was very, very amazing. And it will be followed by Marsha and Max speaking about the presentation as well. So we are holding the slide, and we'll hear about that. And I will join Max in the conversations to give you also the scope of MINA activity, because we've changed quite a lot from 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm just holding the slide. I will give you more numbers and okay. So without further ado, Gerda, Max, over to you, and Marsha, come over here. I will take some pictures here. I will broadcast some things. If you need to swap computer, you know how it works. Yes. Okay.
Maybe very briefly introduce Gerda again. She co-edited a book entitled Cinephamera. Archives and Federal Cinema and New Screen Histories in Canada. And so she has very much an interest in the revival of micro cinema. So from various low-budget independent short films inspired by the creative possibilities of new emerging technologies and the lineage of historical forms of alternative short films and videos. And so of course that is also something that we've been exploring with MINA in the last years as well. And so in the process of setting up the showreel for this year, which had the theme On the Move, got in touch with Gerda to sort of co-curate the program and get some feedback also that, you know, sort of transcends New Zealand out there or make it really more international because it's really the mission. So I've invited Gerda to just do a short reflection on the screening yesterday.
Okay. First I want to thank Laurent and Max for inviting me. It's very exciting to be here, and in particular I want to thank Max and for the transnational, international, global collaboration that we've kind of set up. We had Skype conversations actually. They do work, Laurent, actually. Yes. So that's how we arranged on a time that would work between Canada and New Zealand and had conversations about the films, and that's how we collaborated on a bit the order of the program, but also the selection of the program and how it would work with the team of On the Move. There is a very organic connection between mobile media and people being mobile with their media and all these new devices that have cameras and have become cameras. Like cell phones didn't used to be cameras. Now I don't think you can get a cell phone without camera anymore. And so people are moving about with cameras a lot more, and so it was it's kind of like an interesting connection. Me personally, I come to this from an interest in travel film in general, and so it's more like traveling and visiting other places, other cultures, and looking at it and how you record that, how you look at it, which I will be talking about later. But so the program yesterday, what we when I saw all the films, and you know, I kind of pitched to Max. Well, what I see happening here is that we could do a program that is kind of centrifugal in a way. We start with small personal places, and then it circles outwards to the city, local, national, international, global. But then at the end of the program, we kind of went a bit more freely, and, you know, doing something that a bit more different. What I think was really fascinating to see is that there is such a wide variety of genres, if you can call it. I come from a film background, so that's in the terms that I kind of think in, and that people are much more free today, I think, in thinking outside of the boundaries of what Hollywood has predicted that a film should be. And I thought that was really obvious from the program yesterday. I don't know if you want me to go over all the individual pieces necessarily. I hope most of you have seen the program. Another thing that I think is fascinating is that people are using their portable cameras in a very free way. It's also because they're so small. You can actually really move them like much more easily than you would do with a big broadcast camera, and that creates also a bit of a new aesthetic, I think. The low pixel quality of cell phone imagery is still around, and I think that is lovely. There was a little piece from Canada, what was it called, in the city transit, shot from the bus, that was small frame because the resolution was so low. And I was happy to see that because the evolution right now in mobile media is really towards much higher resolution and sharper images. And I'm already nostalgic in a way to the low resolution aesthetic, the Katai aesthetic that you called it. That comes also from my research, which has to do a lot with Super 8 film and 8mm film and that same thing. And there was a huge revival about 10 years ago, they call the archival turn in cinema, where everyone all of a sudden rediscovered Super 8 for nostalgic images in cinema. And I think this is going to happen now in mobile media as well. Like the low resolution aesthetic in mobile media will probably become.
Later as well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
We'll hear some more of this later with some apps.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, generally speaking, I was very happy to work on this program and to discover all these different voices from everywhere. One of the things that I like in particular is that it was a very inclusive program. There was people like beginning artists, very beginning artists, and more established artists, and they were all together in one program. And that is something that I, as an educator, strongly believe in. And I think we have to give beginning artists a chance for showing their work. And that is not necessarily the case in the official art world out there, where there's still ghettos and elitist places that are closed off to beginning artists, or film festivals even, like actually even more and more, I think. So that's what I think what we tried to do, and in the end, kind of worked. And then we worked on the order of the film so that the program would flow organically from one piece to another, and there's connections being made both in the content with the content of the films and the form of the films, which you might have noticed as well. Right? Sometimes there was like aesthetic choices made from one piece to another, and so they connected in that way. The last thing that I will say, but I will also talk about that in my talk, is that one thing that is very prevalent, I think, in mobile media images is the use of selfies. And so there was 2 pieces in the program as well, 3 even, I think, about how to do selfies, and then, but luckily they came with a bit of irony, which I think is very refreshing. I think a lot of selfies out there take themselves very far too serious. And, yeah. So that's just like off the cuff, some thoughts about the program and how it works. And I really enjoyed doing this, and I'm volunteering to do it again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks very much for sort of joining in and helping out there. I think because it brings a really great, interesting new dimension to the program that you've had now for 4 years, and it's been a really great process. It's been more international than ever before. We had more films submitted. I think it also shows in the quality of the work that we had to make some hard choices there. But I really would like to thank again, like I did yesterday, everyone that was in the committee that helped out selecting the films. So every film has been seen at least by 3 different people. Then had a sort of mini rating system. And then we had a few discussions back and forth, sometimes email, sometimes group hangouts, sometimes Skype, and immediately then curated the final structure of this, which should also be available in an ebook quite soon. Yeah. Thank you very much. So it's great that I can introduce Marsha now to you. A colleague from RMIT University in Melbourne, and Marsha is very much researching the relationship between narrative and mobile media for over 8 years and has numerous publications in international journals. But she's also, with her own creative practice, engaged in poetry, video art, and new media, and exploring notions of memory, place, and displacement through video art, photography, and poetry. And Marsha came to the first symposium in Wellington, and since then we've been talking a lot about the idea to putting forward a publication that really focuses on mobile media making. And
yeah, and getting creative practice out there as research as well.
So it was the idea of getting lots of people together that believe, sort of, I think, in a common ground, and are very passionate about making creative mobile practices and projects. And so, yeah, after I think a 3 years was time to get this on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd like to give you an overview now of the publication.
Okay. We started with the proposition that there's a growing abundance of camera phone apps, which means that tools that were once only available to professionals are now really in the hands of everybody. The ability to experiment with all these apps supports emergent visualities which are shaping how we share and contextualize images. In other words, images are sort of shifting in their function to have a more social dimension. With the overlay of location-based services, these experiences are providing new social and emotional cartographies, which in turn have created lots of new opportunities for creative practice over the last decade. Of course, mobile media remixes and remediates old and new media, just sort of a nod to Bolter and Grushin there, and also shapes storytelling to generate new forms. We've found that there's numerous debates around in mobile media around issues of telepresence, co-presence, and how these impact on contemporary life. Reinhold saw that the development of pervasive network technology as a positive community building force, claiming that computer-mediated communication had the potential to change the world, which indeed it has. Our routine practices evident in social media are underpinned by co-presence. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing is open to debate. Co-presence, it's underpinned by a notion that face-to-face communication is still somehow superior and more authentic than mediated communication. Shelley Turkle is advocating that we should spend less time with our smartphones and more time using in face-to-face encounters, because face-to-face encounters are richer and more demanding than online encounters. On the other hand, Ito famously drew attention that in Japan, this was in studies about 10 years ago, that what was happening was that physically absent friends were able to participate in social situations through mobile phones. So I'll hand over to Max to talk about how it's developed over the last 10 years.
So I think one thing that we decided to do is to structure the book in these 4 different areas to talk about. But I think if you look into the last 10 years, what you see is if you go to some festivals or some events these days, exhibitions. So I'm thinking about like unlatched devices, Ars Electronica or INCA. So let's say between 5 and 10 years ago, you wouldn't really be seeing people using mobile phones. And if you go to one of these events now, there's very much a focus on smartphones. That shows us that there's something happening in lots of creative practices developing. And so I think for a long time we couldn't really find much resources that really deal with mobile media through creative practice. So it has been, of course, a study in the cultural audience and media studies. And I mean, some of the key publications are from Reeser, Goggin, Farman, Ling, Donner, De Silva, Sousa, Fritz, Kapp, Nicholas, Fellow, Wonderful. The list goes on. So very much scholars are in cultural studies or communication studies, but there hasn't been an emphasis really on creativity and innovation and how these practices are developed, so mobile media making. And in a very interesting recent publication, Writing in Mobile Media Research, the State of Art, Goggin, Gerhard Goggin was a keynote speaker via Hangout 3 years ago in Wellington, and Fjord last year here in Auckland, point at the opportunities that mobile media provide, that they provide for expression and agency. I think that's very much some of the themes we discussed yesterday as well, very predominantly. And the prospect of the proliferation for mobile filmmaking and photography and embedding these creative practices in networks and social media illustrates the development that smartphones not have only on mobile filmmaking, but media ecologies as a whole. So we decided to structure the book into 4 looks, to look into the new practices, formats, and the signifying avenues of creative innovation. And it's, I think, not to think about as well as that we look into some established art forms or practices like digital ethnography, filmmaking, photography, art, and media studies, and then provide further exploration of these. So I just give you an overview of the aesthetics section. Dean Keep commences a thread of exploring mobile media aesthetics in his chapter, where he traces how the mobile camera phone continues to remediate and refashion the troops of traditional photography, thus giving rise to new image-making processes and new ways of seeing. He discusses the shape-shifting parameters of the camera phone and how these have impacted on the field of photography through an examination of the ways in which the camera phone has reconfigured our relationship with imaging and have facilitated new modes of photographic practice. He locates smartphone photography within broader discourses and theoretical frames of fine art photography. And his work was part of the MINA showreel program 2 years ago, and this year as well. Leo Berkeley, who had his project Tram 57 in the MINA showreel program last year, and it's very much a reflective account focusing on creative practice. So he has a long career as a filmmaker, and he investigates the potential of the essay film to interrogate creative and academic practices as forms of personal documentary about the experience of traveling on the Tram 57 in Melbourne. He addresses these aesthetics in the reflection on the iPhone documentary Tram 57 by asking what are the aesthetics possibilities of smartphone cameras and what styles of films are enhanced giving these possibilities. Kozov and the mobile phone and the flow of things, whose film Moscow Diaries was in the MINA showreel program 3 years ago, interrogates how mobile films enhance the aesthetics of spatiality of moving image through a reenactment of Benjamin's Moscow Diaries. He uses a camera phone for his film project and reflects upon his creative practice in the chapter The Mobile Phone and the Flow of Things. He also discusses a long take and its implication when it's used as a creative strategy. And so if I would sum this up, I think one of the key things is to underline the notion of experience and presence that mobile media is establishing within these video projects.
The next section of the book looks at space and place and how these are reconfigured through invisible signals, which are sort of ever present. We look at the question in this section that that the essays explore is how mobile technologies help us rethink space and place and the opportunities these new understandings provide for creative practice. The first essay in this section is by Larissa, Keynote from last year, Ambient Play, and she looks at the role of locative media like gaming can have on our understanding of place. This was a project in Tokyo where they explored the underground rivers through a locative media game. The next essay in this section is mine, and what I explored here was how the use of smartphone filters can really create a sort of emotional sense of what it means to be in place, how we can evoke the sense of embodiment through a camera filter. And the next essay in this section is Brian House, and he talks about the earliest form of, one of the earliest forms of mobile media, which is the SMS, and he approaches the question of how smartphones encourage us to rethink space and place through very much an arts-based practice. He argues that despite the rapid advances of smartphones and location-based media, SMS remains a fertile field for creative practice that offer alternative ways of rethinking space and place. which part the 1960s Fluxus movement. He provides a historical perspective of for projects like Larissa's, which he argues that it's still a trajectory there from the 1960s and even earlier, with the way that bringing smartphones into place can affect the ways that we perceive places.
She moves on to the next section, which is about knowledge and stories. And so what became very much obvious that mobile media is not only a production tool for creating stories, but also for sharing, of course. And so if you think about the internet alone and the access of mobile media, you can see that in 2011, there were around, if you like some numbers, if you can set 5.9 billion users. So that's 86.7% of the whole population. So while only 34% of the world population has access to the internet. And if you then think about Africa and Asia, you see that around 50% of these people starting to use the internet through mobile devices. And so we looked here very much into the formation of knowledge sharing, and also very much taking sometimes a critical position. So talking about the participation gap and what that really means, and also thinking about some terms of technological determinism. And the project very much provides innovative solutions to intergenerational knowledge exchange, which acknowledges the centrality of Aboriginal elderness for elderly community members in transmitting, sustaining Aboriginal ways of knowing, creative writing, and the dissemination of knowledge in small-scale farming communities in Africa. The first project by Cecily, who is one of the creators and coordinators for a collaborative knowledge base created by farmers in Tanzania. And in this chapter, he reports on how smartphones were used to document the work of farmers and publish their observations about the effect of climate change through sharing images and voice recordings online in order to expand their social networks. And I think it's also very interesting in the structure. What they do is they give one smartphone to the farmers that the farmers then share, so the phone becomes a community tool. Edmund's chapter reports on digital storytelling, in which she's working with Australian Aboriginal community to harness the creative potential of mobile digital devices for developing digital literacy and multimedia skills. She discusses how information is created and shared through social media, and how the popularity of social media can be utilized to support Aboriginal youth culture and to reclaim Aboriginal material culture. And the other chapter in this section is by Craig Buckley, which takes us into the world of screenwriting, and he explores what happens when screenwriting becomes possible on the smartphone. He argues that smartphone apps not only provide a platform where screenwriters can be freed from the logistical side of screenwriting display, which of course has enormous implications for screenwriting practices. And he traces technology into various functions and tools that create this process of telling two stories and screenplay. He rethinks what different smartphones and apps bring to screenplay writing and practices and knowledge construction in terms of storytelling models, which the assemblage of mobile media as well as involving configuration between technology and the writer.
And finally, we come to part 4, which is the self. Arguably, smartphones have had an enormous effect on self-presentation and have also generated new practices that affect every aspect of our lives. There's also the term selfie that's now in the dictionary. The first chapter in this section is by Crystal Abaddon, and she explores how celebrity bloggers in Singapore are using self-presentation in order to make money, basically. She exposes how a carefully staged presence can be used to create online celebrity and financial gain, so that every aspect of daily life becomes a performance. So, you know, you take the very carefully staged photographs of the food that you're eating, post them to Instagram. Selfies, you know, carefully made up, carefully filtered, and so forth. Really fascinating chapter. I can recommend it. There are also claims abound that the internet is rewiring our brain, and according to Carr, our life is fast food, fast media, fast cars, and a fast cycle to crash and burn. There's a phenomenon that's arisen in response to this, which is slow media. It's part of the broader social zeitgeist. Kelly expands on debates about the place of mobile media in contemporary life. One of his films was shown at the screening last night. He uses slow movement as its point of reference and explores how autoethnography may be adopted as a methodology for exploring the implications of smartphones for filmmaking practices. His chapter focusing on the self as both the subject and object of inquiry provides valuable insights for creative practice research strategies. You don't have it. And the next chapter is by Edgar Gomez Cruz and his student Miguel, and they explore the role that smartphones play in intimacy. Whether texting and sexting harm or enhance relationships is open to question. Gregor from Huffington Post recently reported there was a quantitative survey out of Brigham Young University that found that heavy texting was associated with relationship dissatisfaction among both men and women. Gomez Cruz and Miguel, on the other hand, present a more nuanced ethnography that exposes some of the private aspects of selfies and mediating the self in romantic and sexual relationships, and show how new forms of intimate social interaction are arising and being normalised through photography. And the final chapter is by Max, who observes that selfies are all about the present tense. Many selfies are not taken for posterity, rather they exist in the moment, or for the moment, for sharing in the moment, and then often can become ephemeral. His chapter engages with dialogues about the place of smartphones in first-person filmmaking practices, showing that selfies and documentaries made on smartphones not only produce new genres, but also extend autobiography as a creative practice. So, you know...
Can we take a picture of us? You've got, I think...
we need a selfie stick.
Yes, you get a selfie stick for our community selfie picture at the end, so don't run away, okay? Yeah, it's been really great, I think, working on this over the last years, and it's a sort of a summary of what happened at MINA in the first 2 years, first 3 years. So most of the people that were part of this have presented their work at MINA, so it was really great to see this in the bookshelf near you. And I think it's sort of, for me, it was very important because finally there is now a reference when you start to talk about creative mobile media. So that doesn't come from cultural studies, that doesn't come from communication studies, but that really puts the focus on us as practitioners engaging through filmmaking, photography, apps, knowledge sharing, working with Aboriginal communities, working in Africa, and so on and so forth. And you know, it spans from SMS text mating to screenwriting to visual media production. I think it really puts that focus on creative mobile media that hasn't been there before. So, yeah, very pleased with this.
Yeah, I think it also shows how creative practice itself in and of itself is actually research.
So it just seems very much that last year was a really good year. Because we've been working for a long time trying to get these publications out, and people seem to be like, yeah, mobile phones, smartphones, we're not really sure about this. And so, let's see. And so finally, I think there's very much recognition that suddenly smartphones do change the world and how we engage with the world and how we can communicate and also how we can sort of use us for expression and producing agency. And following on from the first 2 years of the MINA Symposium in Wellington, the opportunity emerged to publish in the Journal of Ubiquity, the Journal of Pervasive Media. And I think if I had to sum up the first 2 years of MINA, it was very much dealing with creative transformation. And the structure of Ubiquity very much reflects, I think, in a way what MINA was doing in the first 2 years. So it allowed us to publish some of the articles from the speakers and the keynote speakers. It had an archaeology section, which allowed us to reflect back on what happened in 10 years of mobile phone filmmaking, which I think is quite important because you get lots of times people coming up and like a Hollywood reporter that say, oh, we've made the first feature film on a mobile phone. Where I'm like, you sure it's the first one? There have been quite a few people that have made similar works before. To get an interview with Felipe Cardona, who was a special guest last year and a quite prominent figure in mobile filmmaking, and also a lab report where we could showcase MINA and reviews of different projects that were produced as part of MINA. So what I would like to do is I would like to give you a very short overview of the first articles, which deal with mobile AV experiences from urban peripheries in Rio de Janeiro, wearable mobile technologies, globalization, and building egalitarian communities. And it's due to the time, for me, just very much giving a brief summary of these, but if you find these interesting, it'd be great for you to engage with them. Aesthetic disruption, mobile audiovisual experiences from urban peripheries in Rio de Janeiro. This article focused on the contemporary dissemination of audiovisual mobile technologies in Brazil, which intervene aesthetics, politics, and culture. Signs of phenomenon come from the do-it-yourself practices adopted in the daily lives of individuals and groups previously excluded from broad access to cultural consumption and production. This new scenario happens as a result of increasing embedding of mobile technologies in daily routines of the emergence of a network culture that irradiates people dictominous positions as transmitter, reporter, active practice. I just want to give you another sentence from Leroux and Clino, which I think sums it up very beautiful. And they're very much heavily engaged in using Foucault's concepts. And they summarize their work as that they depart from the assumption that there's an equality postulated by art. There's the equal ability to anyone to experience any kind of life by exceeding the limits of what is expected of body perception and affection. The image that you can see here is actually from an MIT project, which is called the Partners of the City, Wearable Mobile Technologies in Public Health. And it describes the process of creation of a sensorized insole built with biomaterial as a wearable device. The insole acquires psychological data, so foot pressure and temperature, combined with locative tools, GPS, to create an emotional living map of the city. And like I said before, it's a result of interdisciplinary research between the arts and technoscience that involves collaboration between artists and biomedical engineers and the scientists from Art and Technoscience Laboratory and the Engineering Innovation Lab, which were from University Brasilia in collaboration with the Media Lab MIT, which was presented at MINA. Then there's also an article by a colleague from Massey University, Globalization, Culture, Class, and the Mobile Phone. And it's very much exploring the use of mobile technologies in developing worlds and also high Western income industrialized societies. And it's explored through a case study looking at the diversity of the international profile of the mobile phone users. And it's exploring Kenya, India, Brazil, Russia, China, New Zealand, and the United States. And the fourth chapter in this section is building egalitarian communities through mobile ad hoc network devices. So the article intends to focus on the highlights of the concept of egalitarian communities through the latest developments of mobile technology and peer-to-peer communication networks. With the help of the French author Jean-Luc Nancy, philosophical theory of incorporative communities. And Vencescalo aims to show how communication on community depends on its members' autonomy, its openness, and ubiquity. Moving on, in the archaeology section, it allowed us to look at very early mobile projects, and so it's entitled Early Mobile Aesthetics as an Intervention to the Industry-Dominated Discourse. And as Anders Weber, our keynote speaker, I thought I would use. I decided to use one of his images that I exhibited at the London Gallery West exhibition in 2008. If you remember, if you've been to MINA, Filippo Cardona from Colombia presented his video loops, and it's a very nice article where he makes a very strong argument for mobile phone filmmaking, and he very much explores, or he tells me in the conversation that we have, how it's very much a democratic way of filmmaking processes. And it then explores the film mobile exhibition in London as a lab report and the first and second screenings. And if you haven't accessed it yet, but there's an ebook available. Yes. It should be demonstrated now on our MOA screen. High security. So if you like, you can, complimentary for you, you can also use that link. You'll then be able to get the second edition of our ebook, which is available online in the Apple iTunes for free. One thing I sort of wanted to mention as well is that it's been producing these ebooks is pretty straightforward, but actually getting them out and approved by ISOs and getting the system up and running has been a bit of a challenge, you know. Where you spend quite a few long evenings and weekends talking to some people in the US and figuring out some US tax numbers, and it's been a very odd experience. But MINA has a publisher's account now, so if you're interested in getting any content out there, I'm very happy to share this account with you. Because the production of the actual ebook is very straightforward. It's almost as easy as creating a PowerPoint, I would say, if you get some good design skills. There's a bit of functionality that you need to sort of know, but you know, we are all practitioners, so it's very straightforward. But I think the dissemination through Apple Store, which was for me the hardest bit compared to thinking about the design elements. So if you need any help with this, please feel free to get back to us. But I also would like to use this opportunity to sort of point at the community that we have sort of established over the last year. So very much a, you know, the keyword, the community of practice, where people come together and share their experiences. And I think in the last years, it's been like really becoming a lot more wider in terms of what we discussed. So we can start to think about some projects, of course, like Laurent dealing with mobile pedagogy, or Miriam Ross with her vertical videos, online documentary, Craig O'Ben, the mobile art lab, and video loops. Also, I think I'd like to mention that I think Craig was at both for MINA symposiums. Okay, there's a special coming up. So if you want any inside information, you know, Craig is the man to talk to. Okay, moving on swiftly. The report section, I think, was for us a very nice way to publish some shorter pieces and also projects. So I really would like to engage you with this publication if you're interested with this. And I'm just going to read them out very briefly. There's an article on small screen, big screen, mobile filmmaking in Australasia, which not only focuses on the filmmakers, but also on the festivals that are behind this. So mainly our partner festivals in Australasia. And I think it's quite amazing if you think of the potential that mobile phone filmmaking has in countries like China, for instance. There's an article by Richard Vickers, who was sleeping yesterday.
Yes, Richard sent his apologies. He reached the time.
So
I'm very sorry about that.
You can always look at his article, which is called Mobile Media Participatory Culture and the Digital Vernaculars, 24 Hours in and Democratization of Documentary. And we had Gigawatt of reference yesterday, which he explores in a very interesting way. Then there is an article by Gabi David, who will be speaking later on, and she approaches mobile media from the field of visual culture. So she's talking about the panorama between mobile and visual platforms as a sentimental bond. And there is a contextualization of spatial thresholds and lifts, which is two practice-led projects by Masha and Dean. The picture that you can see there is from the distributed artist, from Benjamin Rabe, and he is very much embracing data as a new form of making art. And it's also being produced in a collaborative way, so you've got different illustrators in different parts of the world producing finger paintings, which is quite amazing, which is in New York, a very big theme, so people meet up and draw on their iPads. So there's a whole community, like there's a community of mobile phone filmmakers, there's a community of iPhonographers, which we connected yesterday from Canada, there's also a community of finger painters. Then there's a short feature on the Entertainment Lab for the very small screen, international collaboration in mobile movie making. From Dan Wagner, he's come to MINA before. It's a great presentation. There's a presentation of myself from 24 Frames, 24 Hours, which I presented last year. And of course, Laurent's digital storytelling project. So, thank you very much for that. The last thing that I would like to share with you is some more of the research that came out from MINA. Is in the CoLab Journal for Creative Technologies. So it's been really amazing that we could on the website. So it's taken us 1 year from like all the other things that we do, from having MINA, getting this stuff out and online, and I think CoLab used this to revamp the journal as well. So it's been a great experience working with CoLab. Thank you very much again for giving us the opportunity to get the publications out in only 1 year. And this is a bit of a summary for you, how you can think about this. So we were exploring creative technologies, which included augmented reality, which we heard yesterday as well, quantum filmmaking, open source technologies, iBook publications, mobile video applications, and smartphone apps. And I think for me what's very interesting is also to think where the different areas where the mobile media have been engaged in. So we had different people that presented last year, including the post-gallery context, so thinking about AR, interdisciplinary participatory culture, archivist and citizen documentaries, the Maori screen industry, and video loop filmmaking. It's a really great resource that you can access online. So just to give you sort of an introduction, the theoretical and conceptual frameworks of embodiment, interactivity, mobility, computer science, e-media theory, conceptual art, narrative theory, participatory archiving strategies, also ethnographic visual culture. And I think what's very key to us is the practice-led research are reflected in this. So the first article that we have is Art in Your Pocket, New Currents in Mobile Augmented Reality. In the 21st century, we've been presented with a new paradigm for current art in the context of a post-gallery milieu. Interactive topologies have emerged, deploying augmented reality (AR) on handheld devices to create site-specific artworks. Reber's purpose in this article is to explore certain key AR artworks, relating these to site-specific installation in a post-gallery context, as well as the embodiment of interactivity and mobility in reference to computer research in computer science, new media theory, and conceptual art. Like we heard yesterday, there's a reflection on quantum filmmaking, the cinema that transforms reality. There is an article on preserving mobilized culture. So it's based upon two participatory archiving case studies, which is Witness and Activist Artist, and a number of interviews and surveys with expert archivists and citizen documentaries. Cardell suggests that archival organization adopt two key practices which transcend traditional archival roles: to become involved in the media life cycle earlier by engaging more closely with citizen documentaries, and to utilize emerging open source technologies. There's one project, maybe we can show this on the screen here as well, which is the Brown Book. This paper presents a case study on the development, publication, and dissemination of the Brown Book, Maori in Screen Production, a multi-platform transmedia book. One of different collaborations here at AUT. It offers an introduction to the Maori screen industry as a basis for exploring ways that non-Maori might interact with the work of Maori in screen production in mutual beneficial ways. And it's also accessible online in the ebook store. You're really engaged in mobile social media and Vine or Instagram. I can highly recommend Patrick Haley's paper, which examines the development of video applications and their use as production tools for the creation of works that trigger an auratic experience. So yes, he very much engages with Benjamin, I think in a very interesting way. And in doing so, it will call on his also ethnographic and practice-led research to affirm the mobile videos format's ability to engage in thoughtful and reflective media creation through the use of applications such as Vine and Instagram. And his Kozakov film, which combined Instagram, was part of the MINA showreel program last year. And there's reimagining the place with filters more than an eye meets. Marsha from Marsha. There is a participatory mobile media project, academic practice from Jenny Wright, and we have video loops from Felipe Cardona, and Dean talking about the liquid aesthetic in photography, in camera phone photography. It's very much he's exploring how it enables users to reinterpret and reimagine many of the tropes of conventional photography and therefore investigate new modes of photographic practice. He argues the camera phone should be understood as a transformative, immutable technology that is constantly evolving and in doing so challenging our notions of traditional photography and inventing new ways to create, share, and interpret photographs in the new millennium. So I really would like to use the opportunity to thank very much all the peer reviewers that helped us out in this process, because all the papers were twice peer reviewed, and also thanking the Colab for supporting us to get the publication out. So it's available online. Okay, thank you.
Do you have enough of me now?
10 more minutes. Hold on there. No, but I think it's important for us basically to engage with you today and just to give you an overview of the last 4 years of activity, because we really want to grow, but not to grow too much. We want to keep a sort of family. Oh, that's broken. Spirit as well, and what said Gerda before is very important for us. Also to be there to mentor, or just to give another hand to co-write papers, or just to publish something for emerging researchers or emerging filmmakers. So we need to just to go back to here and presentation, and so MINA.pro, it's our main website. Have a look on the tabs, research events, and that sort of things. We're constantly updating that. Max is in charge of that in Wellington, so that's one of the key things. Also, we've got a very extensive network now, and we just consolidated our YouTube presence from yesterday, and you've got access to the playlist of presentation from yesterday. But roughly, that's something you need to keep in mind. When we started to broadcast with Harry from Collab and Max Network and mine, we are reaching sort of 92,000 people extended circles. So we're growing, definitely, in the last 4 years. So 90,000 roughly people that are part of our extended big circles, and we wish that we can share that with you and you can be part of that. So hopefully we'll have a 30 by the end of the day. Yeah, let's grow up by 3, step by step.
We have to get to TSB Arena next year. But.
Yeah, so we've got a very strong Facebook presence. Max is leading that one. I'm on the LinkedIn.
You can like us now. It's a mobile innovation network.
Yes, yes, and MINA Mobile on Twitter as well. So we have some numbers. We launched MINA Tipapa 4 years ago with different projects. Max was young and beautiful with long hair. We had no keynote in 2011. We had Felipe Cardona from Colombia, Gerard from Australia, Larissa, Helen last year, Marsha, Gerda, and Anders this year. And hopefully we will have a 2015 and we'll have more. And we went from no keynote speakers to filmmakers and academic people to now a very, very broad academic practitioners. So that's the sort of things. Oh, and can we talk about quickly about MINA? Because Charles referred to that. How we found the MINA is pretty interesting. We would like to share that with you today. Do you want to start, MINA? So mobile innovation network Aotearoa.
So I said, I think we need to have something that deals with innovation.
And I said I want something about New Zealand, Aotearoa. And we thought like IA, and we're dealing with.
So we went online, did a bit of a search, MINA, and an Italian rock singer came up. I looked at Laurent. Laurent looked at me. He didn't say much. Just, yeah.
She's gorgeous. If you go on YouTube, you look at MINA. She's quite hot.
She smokes cigarettes while she's singing. So
yeah, it's very amazing, sort of 60s, 70s, old-fashioned Italian style. So we thought, yeah, we can deal with that in the Pacific. So that was quite good. Yes, and this is badly done, and there is a screening program missing here. But basically, that was the first year with one program, combining both because we had 1 day symposium. In 2012, we extended to 1.5 with a workshop days focusing here. And last year and this year, we've got 2 days now of symposium, plus the pre-screening. And we wish that we would expand that as well with combining more workshop or more private industry or private sector sessions. So yeah, basically we're growing again. We were aiming to give you the screening DVD. Because of technical issue, we couldn't achieve that today. But despite the fact that MINA is finishing today, we will email you, or not email you, sorry. We will mail you, old-fashioned way. We will mail you the DVD. All the people who registered will get a copy of the DVD,
Santa Claus.
Yeah, Santa Claus, your Christmas gift. And Craig, where are you, Craig? Craig has been 4 years in a row attending, supporting MINA, 4 years solidly. And Craig, will you come here? And we've got a gift for you. We're doing all that travel in Wellington and in Auckland. We've got a bottle of wine. Thank you for being solidly with us for 4 years in a row. Give me a hug. So yeah, next year if you come again, it might be cognac or whiskey, something stronger. But 4 years in a row, and everyone is sort of coming in and out, and we know that you've got different research commitments, family commitments, or location commitments. So that's
It's always great to, helping out, sharing a panel, engaging in some peer review. Thanks to everyone in the community for that as well.
Yes, speaking about community, MINA has been leading few workshops over the last 4 years. I calculated 10-ish, I think it's even 11. Different workshops in different places. So that's one of the activities as well that we do. We like to engage with professional people, with students, or with just different people who want to go. So we're focusing on community, and this is the physical workshop that we hosted in Australia, in Colombia, in France, in Germany, New Zealand and South Africa this year, and US.
So we had different sometimes where we collaborated in having workshops in one location. Sometimes we used online tools, Google Plus Hangout, Twitter, social media. And sort of for us, it's developing like a local classroom. So we as practitioners, of course, in the university, we have combined different projects that we sometimes run across different papers in different countries, and getting young people together. And I think sometimes it's really quite amazing. So you can see here is Chateau of Laurent in France. There's some colleagues in Malaysia, colleagues in London, and this is Wellington, and Germany on the right side. And for us, it's an opportunity with different projects that we engage in to bring the students together. And I think it's just it's just amazing to see when students exchange their Facebook accounts, exchange their emails afterwards, and sort of start having like also discussion about what they do, and sort of understand that there's actually someone at the other end of the world when you're on your Facebook.
And also we developed a good mobile community of practice between Australia, Canada, Colombia, France, Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, UK, and US. So yeah, you're welcome to join us now as well, and to carry on the conversations together. If you go in Canada, we've got a few people over there, but the more the better. So that's what we're planning to do. And Dermot, for instance, if you've got colleagues that want also to do to join us, or to work with us, to collaborate. Dermot is from the University of Auckland. Welcome at AUT. But this is the sort of very things I think that I love about the work we're doing. It's we don't care about branding. We don't care about competition. The aim is mobile, and we work together. And like, are you in ethnography? Are you in sociology? Are you in health? Are you in pedagogy? We work together, and I think it's a good thing. We developed one app in 4 years, so it's a big challenge. You developed it.
It's a colleague of mine from London who is now in the United States, in New York, and he's doing very well. And what he allowed us to do is to beta test this app so we could brand it as MINA, which is a geolocated photography app. So at the moment, it's not accessible in New Zealand because I have to pay $150 again to Apple. But what you can do in a very easy way with this app is can use it for different projects. So I used it to prototype a documentary production, to crowdsource a community for this for the film. And so within 2 days, we could find people that helped us to help me to develop a community collaboration on a documentary project.
So this one is here.
Yeah.
So you got all the movies of those people documenting
So I talked to a few just very briefly, the work is about the community at the Jersey Shore and the impact Hurricane Sandy had on that community. And so for me, it was an idea of establishing a conversation, a dialogue with the community. Because they had lots of media attention when the hurricane happened, but then 6 months later, there was nothing that happened there. And so I talked to lots of people, and they're very much wanting to create some work. And so just by sharing the app through Facebook, people then took part and took different pictures, so that the location scouting for a feature film was done in 2 days. And yeah, people engaged with sort of then saying with different likes whom they would like to interview. So it looks from the front end like a very straightforward documentary, but the background and the production process is very collaborative. But I mean, if you're interested in thinking about using this app, we can very easily rebrand it, and you can use it as a geolocated tool.
Okay, we've done also a few festivals and events here and there in Australia, Colombia, France, Germany, India, South Africa, and UK. And that's the Fringe Festival as well. We've got a very good screening coming up. So you've seen today's screening here in Auckland. The next one is in Wellington.
6th of December.
6th of December. Then there is another screening in France just before Christmas. And there is another screening planned in February in UK, in Manchester. And in April 2015, the same screening will be in South Africa, in Johannesburg. So again, if you know someone who would be interested to support us and to screen some of the work we're doing, that would be great. And the way we develop now the new models for next year, people will use MINA as a template or as an excuse, but we would like also to broadcast local filmmakers. So South Africa, for instance, will use MINA screening or some samples of MINA screening to basically to gather people to do workshops about mobile technology and to promote local filmmakers with mobile phones. And it's part of a bigger festival, 1 week art festival. So it's amazing. Yeah.
And I mean, there's like a quite amazing set of resources. So you've got DVDs from the last year's screening, the last 2 events, and 2 ebooks. So DVD is sometimes it can go into a library and that you can, just put into any DVD player and play it. The ebook, of course, is more accessible for any of the devices that you might have. The ebooks can now also be downloaded on the computers with the new ebooks reader. And they are very much a really great teaching tool. So if you're interested or if you don't have one, you can get in touch with me.
Mm. And we've been commissioned as a MINA company to do a few things mostly for ADC. And I can speak. You can speak about that one, but I will speak about that one because I'm more involved with both things. Basically, that was the business school that asked us to film, to record a sort of teaser, 2 minutes teaser of the big 3 hours national award. And surprisingly, we discovered after doing that last year, mainly, that there's a strong interest from business people, from business school in terms of marketing, to do those Kickstarter movie, to do those Lulu pitch with mobile phone because it's a low-cost production. Which means it's a different now opportunity for us as a mobile maker or mobile people interested to look at the business side of mobile technology. And it was so well received from a VC point of view that we did this year again, and we're planning to do next year. The good thing about that also is that I worked with 16 years old young talented people to 22 years old. So it's a crew of 5 people, 16 years old, 20 years old, 21, and 22. One of a very talented Maori guy, Kane Richmond, working for Maori Television. He's 16 years old, he built the whole crane. So basically, we're doing a lot of mentorship. We're trying to bring those people into the industry. We're trying to create some vocational pathways. And we've got the luxury of having now good relationship and good established connections to say, well, we do that project, we've got one constraint, we want to work with young people, and we want them to be paid. And it works. It works very well. So that's one of the things we developed over the last 4 years.
It's a really good opportunity now so to, I think, people realize that you've got a Facebook site, you've got a Twitter account, and you want to put some visual material on there. So I think mobile filmmaking is now in that space doing very well. I've done a few projects at Massey University where we did some sort of behind the scenes for an advertisement that we shot all on a mobile phone. Or we've done the different events where also some short videos, working also with students. Or just sort of, I did a few where I just did it myself as a 1-minute video that I filmed all on the phone, then edited with KineMaster. So I think for just very short event documentation, producing viral videos, there's a really good opportunity. And I mean, this can also be combined with the workshop. So if you don't have the skills yet, that there's ways to facilitate this and work with young people.
Yeah, and actually we worked as well with Daniel Wagner from Unitech here as well. It was in a different context, but the things we've done for the opera in UK was sort of big part of a learning outcome for different students. But behind there was a lot of time that we spent from a MINA point of view as well. And Justin is one of those victims that survived from the last filming. Look at his smile on his face. Thanks. And what else do we have here? Yeah, just to finish up, in a few weeks' time I will be in France, and in France there is a big national festival called Le Jour le plus court, and it's a collaborative filmmaking festival, mainly focusing on documentary and short films. And we set up for so this year is the 4th year again, a live filmmaking documentary. So if you want to be part of that, I can give you more brief. But basically, we're making a short film on the day, and it's recording live events, and it's people around the world making footage that can connect with each other and can become a meta narrative or a meta story. It's up to you to decide. So it's very, very experimental. But if you want to know more about that, I can give you some insight in front of a good glass of something. I think that's pretty much short.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also very much a platform to engage, because there's different other projects of Ren 24 frames, 24 hours, or there's entertainment lab with a very small screen from Dan.
Yes.
People who have an interest in working with mobile devices, and we sort of engaged in all different levels with this. So there's, I think, always the opportunity to do this in the future as well. And it's always been very exciting to work, with smaller communities and connect them globally.
All right, so thank you very much. Again, stay with us, and be part of the family. Now, let's have a stretch, let's have a cookie, and I will connect with